It was January 30th, 1933, in the gray winter streets of Berlin. The world barely noticed as a former soldier and failed artist was sworn in as Chancellor of Germany. Crowds cheered, but many doubted it would last. He had been dismissed before, a radical, a street agitator, a voice of bitterness from a broken past. But within weeks, democracy collapsed. Within months, opposition was crushed. And within a few short years, Germany, one of Europe's most advanced societies, had become a one-party dictatorship, ruled not by law, but by the will of one man. This is the story of Adolf Hitler, the dictator who promised order and delivered ruin. A man who exploited fear, twisted ideology, and led the world into its deadliest war, leaving behind a trail of ashes, silence, and 6 million murdered Jews. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in Braunau am in Austria-Hungary, near the German border. His father, Alois, was a stern customs official. His mother, Clara, was gentle, doting, and deeply loved by young Adolf. From an early age, he dreamed of becoming an artist. Twice he applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, and twice he was rejected by 1909. He was living in Vienna, in near poverty. He spent his days sketching buildings and absorbing the politics of the street. It was in Vienna that he encountered two ideas that would define his future: fierce German nationalism and virulent anti-Semitism. He blamed Jews, Marxists, and modernity for the decay of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But he did not yet act. That would change with the war. In 1914, as Europe plunged into World War I, Hitler crossed into Germany and enlisted in the Bavarian army. For him, war was not hell, it was purpose. He served on the Western Front, was wounded, and decorated for bravery. But when the war ended in 1918, Germany had lost. The Kaiser abdicated, revolution broke out, and the country was forced to accept the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler, like many, felt betrayed. He blamed Germany's defeat not on military failure, but on politicians, especially Jews, socialists, and pacifists, who had, in his words, stabbed the nation in the back. This stab-in-the-back myth became central to his thinking. Germany had not lost. It had been sabotaged. It needed vengeance. After the war, Hitler remained in the army, assigned to monitor political groups in Munich. There, he discovered, the German Workers' Party, a small nationalist movement with big ambitions. Hitler joined, then took it over. He renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party. By 1923, emboldened by right-wing uprisings and economic turmoil, Hitler attempted a coup in Munich, the infamous beer hall putsch. It failed. He was arrested, but during his 9-month imprisonment, he dictated Mein Kampf, Aryan supremacy, hatred of democracy, and visions of expansion. The world didn't listen. The Nazi Party was banned. Hitler was forbidden from speaking in public. But as Germany plunged into depression in 1929, his ideas found new traction. Unemployment soared, inflation returned. And with it, fear. The Nazis promised strength, order, renewal. In 1930, they became the second largest party in the Reichstag. By 1932, Hitler ran for president and lost. But in January 1933, under pressure from conservatives who believed they could control him, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. They were wrong. Weeks after taking office, the German parliament was set on fire. Hitler used the incident to declare a state of emergency. The Communist Party was banned. Civil liberties were suspended. Mass arrests followed in March. The Enabling Act passed, giving Hitler the power to rule by decree. Democracy was over. Within a year, political parties were dissolved. Unions were abolished. Opponents were imprisoned or executed. And when President Hindenburg died in 1934, Hitler merged the roles of Chancellor and President, becoming Führer, the supreme leader of the German Reich. He now had total control. Hitler's regime was built on 4 pillars: totalitarian control, racial ideology, militarization, and propaganda. The Gestapo and SS enforced obedience. Books were burned. The media was censored. Schools taught loyalty to Hitler. At the core was race. Hitler envisioned a pure Aryan state, cleansed of Jews, Roma, disabled people, homosexuals, and political enemies. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 stripped Jews of citizenship and rights. Jewish businesses were boycotted. Violence escalated. In 1938, Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, unleashed coordinated attacks on synagogues, homes, and shops. Thousands of Jews were arrested. Many were killed. The groundwork for genocide was laid. Hitler's foreign policy was driven by Lebensraum, the idea that Germany needed living space in the East, in 1936. German troops reoccupied the Rhineland. In 1938, Austria was annexed. In the Anschluss, later that year, Hitler demanded the Sudetenland, a German-speaking region of Czechoslovakia. Britain and France, desperate to avoid war, agreed. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain returned to London claiming peace for our time. But peace was an illusion. In 1939, Hitler signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with Stalin, a secret deal. To divide Eastern Europe, on September 1st, Germany invaded Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. Germany's blitzkrieg swept through Poland, Norway, Denmark, the Low Countries, and France. By 1940, Hitler stood at the height of his power. He turned east, launching Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, in June 19. For one, it was vast, brutal, and fueled by racial hatred. In the occupied East, mobile killing squads, Einsatzgruppen, began mass shootings of Jews and other civilians. By 1942, the Nazi regime moved to industrial murder. At the Wannsee Conference, top officials formalized the final solution: the planned extermination of Europe's Jews. Camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor became death factories, gas chambers, replaced bullets. By war's end, 6 million Jews had been murdered, along with millions of others. It was genocide on an unimaginable scale. Hitler's war of conquest became a war of desperation. The invasion of the Soviet Union stalled. At Stalingrad, his armies were trapped and defeated. In North Africa and Italy, German forces retreated. In 1944, Allied troops landed in Normandy. Germany was now surrounded, bombed from the air, attacked from both east and west. Yet Hitler refused to surrender. He ordered doomed offensives, purged generals, clung to fantasies of miracle weapons. In Berlin, deep beneath the city in his bunker, he dictated his final thoughts, still blaming the Jews, still insisting on betrayal. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet troops closed in, Adolf Hitler shot himself. His wife of one day, Eva Braun, took poison beside him. Their bodies were burned in the garden above. Germany surrendered a week later. The Third Reich, which Hitler had promised would last 1,000 years, had lasted just 12. It left behind over 60 million dead in the Second World War, cities in ruins, camps filled with corpses, a continent broken. At the Nuremberg trials, surviving Nazi leaders were held to account, but Hitler, the architect of war and genocide, had escaped earthly justice. His memory lives not in honor, but in infamy. Adolf Hitler rose, not by strength alone, but by exploiting fear, division, and disillusionment. He offered pride to the humiliated, simplicity to the confused, enemies to the angry. And when he seized power, he silenced truth, rewrote law, and made war on the very idea of humanity. What he built was not strength. It was destruction dressed in uniform, ideology turned apocalyptic. His death ended his rule, but his legacy demands remembrance, because tyranny rarely arrives with gunfire. It comes often with promises of greatness, of order, of renewal. Hitler made those promises and delivered only ruin.